Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Friday. We made it through our first week. We got one lesson left, and my last one for recording for this week. I did all 5 today. So let's take a look at our next lesson. So today we're going to talk about slope, and it's actually going to be our last lesson in our Unit 7. So our learning target for today is I can calculate slope using the vertical and horizontal change of a line. So we have a new word for us. We've got slope. And slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. And we're going to notice that we have a word that we just talked about yesterday, rate of change. So that's really what you're calculating, is you're going to be calculating rate of change. A lot of people like slope more than rate of change. It's a little simpler. You don't need to necessarily simplify. You don't need to worry about your labels, so that makes it really nice. So we take a look at our slope formula. Slope is very simple. It's just rise over run. So if anybody ever asks you what is slope, you should only use 3 words. It's rise over run. So yesterday we talked about what rate of change was. And rate of change was the change in y over the change in x. And if you think about what y is the vertical line. So vertical line, the change of y is a vertical line. So that's rise, okay, up and down. And then run, that's the change in x. And that's a run. That's a horizontal change, a left and right change. So that's why it's rise over run. It's exactly the same thing as rate of change, but we're just going to worry about our numbers. So if we take a look at our picture, rise over run. So you saw yesterday, during yesterday's lesson, I was drawing very similar things to that when we were looking at our graphs. So we're pretty much doing the exact same thing that we did yesterday. We're just not going to be worried about our labels. So let's take a look at a couple examples. So I want to find the rise and run to find the slope of each object below. Number 1, I've got a treadmill, and it's 48 inches left and right, and it's 10 inches up. It's inclined at 10 inches. So if our slope is rise over run, our rise is 10 inches, and our run is 48 inches. Now what we do want to do is we do want to simplify that though, and we can keep it as a fraction. So I'm going to have 5 over 24. I don't need to worry about having inches in there because those would actually cancel each other out. So our slope for number 1 is 5/24. Number 2, I've got a roof of like a shed. So slope is rise over run. The rise is 3 feet, and the run is 15 feet. Those labels are going to cancel each other out. If I simplify, I have 1/5. And we're going to keep it like that, 1/5. It is important when you're doing slope that you keep them as fractions and not decimals. It's going to make it easier when we graph, which we're going to see in a little bit. So I have 4 different kinds of slopes, and we saw 2 of these yesterday. So a positive slope is when a line slopes up from left and right. So think about skiing. A negative slope is when the line slopes down from left and right, and we talked about both of those yesterday. A slope of 0 is a horizontal line. So if you think about skiing, that slope of 0 is no fun, right? It's a slope of 0. There's nothing you can do. You can't ski on that. That's just a horizontal line. And a vertical line is undefined. Okay, it's different than 0 slope. Undefined just means that they're like you can't have an answer. If you go skiing on that, you're falling off the cliff. So let's take a look at a couple examples here. We're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday, drawing our triangles and just counting our squares. So I'm going to start. I always start on left to right, and it's rise over run. So these are counting by ones. So I go up, and my rise is 5. And I go over, and my run is 3. So rise over run. I'm going to leave it just like that. So on this one, if I move from left to right, I'm going down 4. It's down 4. I'm going over to the right, 6. So our slope is actually going to be negative 4/6, which could be simplified to negative 2/3. And our next one, I'm going to go from left to right again. I'm going up 5 and over 3. So 5/3, and that's positive. And number 4, left to right, I'm going down 7 and over 5. So negative 7/5, because that is a negative slope, and that does not need to be simplified. I highly recommend keeping improper fractions. It's going to be easier when we graph them, and you'll see that in a little bit. All right, let's take a look at a couple graphing problems. So we're going to graph a line with the given slope that contains the given point. So in number 1, I have my slope is 3, and my point is 1, 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to graph 1, 1. So next I'm going to use my slope to create my next point. So if I look at my slope is just 3. Remember, slope is rise over run. So I want a fraction, and that's why we left it as a fraction. That's why we left them as a fraction. We didn't change them into improper fractions or decimals. So I want to change that 3 into a fraction. Well, remember, if they're whole numbers, if I want to change it into a fraction, I just put a 1 underneath. So my rise over run is actually going to be 3 rise, and then run is going to be 1. So I'm going to go up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1. You're going to notice a pattern. Up 3 over 1. Now you can continue that pattern the other direction. Just make sure it continues to look the same. So I'm going to go over 1, down 3. Once you feel like you have enough points, and you should have at least 3, probably 3 or 5, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect my dots as best as I can, and then add arrows to show that that line would continue. Alright, let's take a look at number 2. Slope is negative 1/2, and I'm going to use my point 3, negative 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is graph 3, negative 2. Remember, our slope is rise over run. My fraction is 1/2, and there is a negative, and I can attach that negative to whatever one of those numbers I want. I usually just do the top one. So instead of going up 1 over 2, I'm actually going to go down 1 over 2. I'm going to go down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, and I'm going to keep up this pattern until I have like 3, maybe 5 dots. Down 1 over 2. I'm going to make it go the other way one more time. Okay. Now we can connect the dots as best as we can. And then don't forget to add the arrows to show that those lines continue. Now when you're actually graphing these, you do not need to have those pink lines on there. I like to have those on there when I'm showing rise over run. If that's something that you would like to do, I would highly encourage you to do that. It'll make it less likely that you make a mistake, because you're going to notice that it looks like a pattern. Okay. All right, so that's it for our lesson for today. Don't forget to work on those IXLs. If you have if you need anything, if you have any questions, you can Schoolers message me. We can set up a meeting. Otherwise, that blue worksheet is there for you if you need some extra help as well. Have a great weekend, guys. Peace.